All right, so this is part two. So basically, the whole time I'm praying for my cat, I'm like, oh my goodness, Lord, please, his name is Golan. We call him Golani. So I'm like, oh Lord, please, I just pray that Golani's okay. Like, Lord, please. He's this little guy. He's been with us about 1.5 years, so he's still very tiny. And I'm just like, Lord, please. And he's a G. Like, he's afraid of us. Like, he's afraid of human touch. But he has lived through so many different things. And he's always coming to be fed. He'll have scars on his face from fighting out there. So I'm like, look, he's made it through so many different things. Lord, please allow him to make it through this. And so I'm worried about the cat. We're trying to soak up the water. It was just a very, very stressful situation. Mind you, we trust the Lord. And so we're praying and we're asking God to see us through. But a lot of people might think, oh, I thought you said you trust the Lord. Like, of course we trust the Lord, but we're human. And listening to those winds outside, ultimately, whether we are delivered from something or not, God is still good. And so never once were we like, Lord, why is this happening? Like, we were just praying like, Lord, for whatever reason this is happening, Lord, just see us through this. We just want to, we need your peace in this. We need your leading. We need your guidance. If we lose power, help us to navigate through the water coming in, like, Lord, please. And I'm very honest with the Lord. Lord, this is an expense we really cannot add to the list. So please help us. And so basically, it was just a nonstop night of it was just very, my husband explained it like being inside, like the three little pigs. And he's like, it feels like we're the three little pigs and there's so much commotion outside and it's like a vortex out there. Like, he was just giving me all these different explanations. Like, it was just unlike anything we've ever experienced. So both of us were just kind of like describing it and stuff. But ultimately, we made it through. Around 5 o'clock in the morning is when things started to really, well, let me rewind a little bit. So my cat that I lost, I hadn't seen him since he ran away around, I want to say 10-ish is when I lost sight of him. And so I'm looking out the window for him. And sometimes when I would look out my window, like, I was seeing pieces of roof and debris all over my backyard. And we have 2 glass doors out there, so I can look out to see. We left the blinds open the whole time so I could see. So you could see the things just flying by the house. And the reason why I was watching is because I was looking for the cat. And so I wasn't too close to the glass doors, but I was just kind of like looking. And then at one point I walked away and I came here to this front room. And I remember just being by the window praying, and my husband walked next to me and we're both looking out the window. And I'm like, I hope he's okay. Like, I hope Golan is okay. I just want to see his grumpy little face come up to me when everything is over. And he just walks up to me and my husband's like, yeah, I know. So I leave. As soon as I said that, I walked away and I'm going back to the backyard and I'm walking past there and I hear crying. And still it's windy. Okay, because it's about 2 o'clock in the morning, so it's still windy. But it was starting to calm down, but it was still windy. I hear crying back there. I go to the door, and there he is, his grumpy little face looking up at me, soaking wet, just shivering, looking up at me. I'm like, Papa! So we open the door. And we had like a little cat carrier. So we opened the cat carrier and we're like, come inside. You don't have to come into the house, but come into the carrier. So we put like little treats in the carrier and we were trying to get him to come in. But every so often the wind would pick up and it would be enough to like knock him off his feet, to like he would go to the side and get afraid. And so he wouldn't come in. So I closed the door just because the wind was still picking up at times. I closed the doors and I just sit there watching him. And he sat in my backyard, like he found this little spot in my backyard and just stood there on his little fours, just looking at me the whole time. And every so often he would come up to the glass, let me know he's there. It was just so, I can't explain the feeling. It was just very joyful. It was almost like in the midst of all of that craziness, like there was joy. And my husband's like, oh my goodness, it's like the Lord answered your prayer right then and there, because I had been praying for him and I wanted to just see his face. And I walk away and there he is in my backyard after not being able to see him all night. So that was around 2 o'clock. We're still picking up water all night long, all night long. We couldn't go to sleep because the water was coming in and we didn't want it. It was coming in up until like underneath my bed. I have my master bathroom and it was coming in. And so when I stepped down, like on my side of the bed, the window's on my husband's side. When I would step down on my side of the bed, water was coming up through the baseboard. So I'm like, through the board. So I'm like, it's on this side. So we were just doing everything we could to, to soak up the water. And like I said, praise God, we didn't lose power, but it was such a stressful night. It was such an exhausting night. And the next day, that's when everybody goes outside to like see the damage. And when we first went outside, the devastation in my area was just, and I get emotional because there are people, as I sit and do this video, there are people who have houses that are still underwater. My area, my county, and several other counties are on flood watch still because our rivers are continuing to rise. And they're doing a lot of building here where I live, and a lot of people who are moving here, a lot of people in the last several years have they're fleeing their states. A lot of them fleeing blue states. I hate to say it, but it's true. And they're moving down here and they're just quickly building up over here. But it's like we are not, everything is growing and building quickly, but they're not prepared. And so a lot of our wetlands are disappearing and they're building, buildings and things like that. And sure enough, an area that has never flooded, at least not as long as we have been here, is experienced historic flooding. And so houses are underwater. People have lost so much. My daughter had actually evacuated to Miami, and on her way back here, she told us there were hundreds of cars abandoned by the side of the road. She said at one point there was a Jeep in front of her that was clearing water out of her way. My daughter drives a little Toyota. She said, "Mommy, I'm driving behind this Jeep just praying that the Jeep would get me through it because it felt like my car was just floating across the water. Like that's how high the water was." She said it was terrifying. And I'm just so thankful that she made it through that. She didn't have power. She actually lost power. So when she came back from Miami, she didn't have any power. She lost all her food. Like it was crazy. But the devastation in our area was crazy. And then my neighbor, who has a 2-story house, was taking pictures of the roof of our house and showed us, because from the ground I couldn't see my second floor roof. And so we thought, oh, okay, good, we don't have no damage. And I'm like, yeah, but what about all that debris that was in our yard? And my neighbor's like, it must have been from other houses. Well, it actually was from our roof, from our second floor on the right side of the house where we can't see. All of these shingles like ripped off. And so because of, I guess, my house, like our house is over a decade old, and according to like insurance rules or whatever, like there's all this stuff about how we might have to replace the roof, and it's just going to be very expensive. It's an expense we didn't expect. There's a lot of people who would say like, you need to have savings. My husband and I actually did have savings, and over the last 3.5 years, it has depleted significantly because of inflation. Like we have had to go into our savings so many times in the last 3 years. And so as prepared as you can be, even with insurance companies, like there's so many, like the insurance companies in Florida have raised the prices so much, even in the last 3 years. In 2020, I was paying a set amount for my insurance. Over the last 3 years, our insurance has rose, like I want to say almost $3,000 is the increase that we are at now. And we just don't know like what's going to be covered. Some of my neighbors are having a hard time with their insurance. We did file a claim, but they don't know if they're going to have to, we're in the process of finding out, do we have to replace the whole thing? Our deductible's very high. So it's not something we expected. In fact, I've asked the Lord, okay, we've done everything we could. We prepared as best as we could. And here we are, Lord. My husband is a disabled veteran. We're on a fixed disabled income. What do we do, God? What do we do? And it's in the Lord's hands. It's in the Lord's hands. He will guide us and lead us. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the update for now. For those who were asking, there's the update.